Everyone, hope you're doing well, hope you're looking after yourselves. Welcome to another episode of the Hustle Chronicles, where we dive into the interesting and amazing world of entrepreneurship, but through an authentic and honest lens. We learn from incredible people, but not only do we learn from them, we get to bring them back on to explore their journeys a year later. This is not bringing someone back on. This is actually the Hustle Chronicles with a new speaker, with a new amazing speaker, doing a new amazing project and doing incredible work, as always. As you know, I don't like doing introductions because I think it's best for us to hear from these incredible individuals themselves, so I'm going to hand over to the guest. I will say, with a bit of context, you may have seen this face already on the channel. If you have, this is a reintroduction, and if not, this is a total surprise because they're going to be on another podcast, which is the fun thing about recording content. But Nkeiru, could we please know a bit more about you, your business, and what you do?
Yeah, sure. Hi everyone, my name is Nkeiru, and I'm the CEO and founder of Web3sy, and we make Web3 easy. We introduce young kids to emerging technologies through online after-school clubs, a technical blog, and workshops.
Yeah, thank you very much. And as I mentioned, Nkeiru has been in one of our other podcasts, The Student Guide. So if that hasn't come out just yet, keep an eye on the space. That'll be coming very shortly. You'll be learning more about her journey as a whole there. But this is specifically about being an entrepreneur. So we're going to start things off with looking almost behind the scenes. So before Web3sy launched, what was one project or moment from your early engineering or teaching days that didn't make the headlines but taught you something critical about entrepreneurship or building something meaningful?
Maybe, okay, I have two. Neither of them made headlines per se. One was my YouTube channel. When I was younger, I used to love creating content, and I would make such weird stuff. It'd be vlogs, and in my school, I wasn't bullied, but everyone was just like, "You're weird. Like your content's weird, but I like it." That kind of vibe, which was actually quite encouraging because weird isn't necessarily a bad thing, and the people who were calling it weird were watching it and interacting with it, engaging with it. So I really enjoyed that. And then I think I stopped. I also did like gaming videos, so like playthroughs on my channel as well. I found that really fun. But then as university came around, as well as A-levels and things like that, they kind of got in the way and I stopped. I have tried to start picking it back up again with like YouTube shorts and small videos here and there, but it will take, I'll be there eventually. I might be kind of getting back into my content bag through Instagram and things. And then the second mini project was a game I made called Nightwalker. There were actually two versions. One was Nightwalk and one was Nightwalker. The first version was a visual novel. It was a horror game, a role-playing horror game where you kind of are trapped in your own imagination. Very meta, very confusing. And that went well as a visual novel because I'd had visual novel creation experience. But then Nightwalker, or Nightwalk 2.0, was a pixelated role-playing game, pixelated RPG. So think, oh my gosh, I don't know if anyone is familiar with these like old school, kind of retro-ish games like Ao Oni, Misao, Corpse Party, that type of game where it's pixelated. You're a mini character and you interact with different things around your world. But yeah, that was kind of inspired by my love of horror games and watching YouTubers such as Corey Kenshin and his playthroughs. But that never finished. I did pick it back up again in university, but didn't get to fully finish it or continue it because of other commitments.
That's fair. Okay, I do have comments, but my first question has to be, what's your favourite horror game? It can be if it's a series, you can say the series.
Horror game, favourite horror game. I love like the Silent Hill series for being so pioneering. You have like really classic characters like, what's his name? What's the name? The Pyramid Head. Oh, yeah. Yeah, there we go. And what are the maids called? I've forgotten. I know but the nurses. Yeah. And then that kind of spun off. I know that Silent Hill and Resident Evil are somehow related, but like seeing horror games like Resident Evil come out of that, and now you've got the whole concept of like those characters where they're like, oh my gosh. You're like, if you're playing a game, you have to continue looking at them. And if you turn around, they'll like come towards you. Anyway, yeah, I think that Silent Hill really laid the groundwork for atmosphere in games and in the gaming industry. So I would say that, but I love a lot of different other horror games as well.
Okay. Would you say Silent Hill is also your recommendation, or do you have another one that you'd recommend for like anyone who's interested in games, horror games?
I don't know. I don't know if I'd recommend it anymore, only because it's like hard to set up, and I know there is a remastered version actually, but if you wanted the original with like the original graphics and stuff, I'm not sure if many new gamers would be into that, but maybe play the remastered, yeah. But also Resident Evil, I think, is a classic throughout the ages.
That is true. And there is a new Resident Evil coming.
Another one?
Year. Yeah, Resident Evil 9, which is wild to think. And they're also going to do something special because I think next February or March is 20 years since Resident Evil came out. So there'll be a lot of cool stuff happening as well. Yeah, which is really cool. Okay, we're going to go on to the next question to learn more about your creative and... Oh, actually, no, we're not. Sorry, I said I was going to... Your YouTube channel. Yes, I found your YouTube channel before. And I would say it is incredible to see... No, it's honestly, like, it's incredible. I think getting into YouTube is tough. At a young age, it's definitely tough. Like you said, like, people in school... Secondary school is a whole experience itself, and that can be a whole different podcast conversation. But I think, like you said, it's really cool to see your YouTube channel. I have seen some of the content. I think it's very cool, it's relatable, it's interesting, and it shows who you are as a person, which is really great as well.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. We're going to go into section 2, which I think is it's something every entrepreneur will go through, which is personal moments of doubt. So, you're running a venture focused on emerging tech for young learners, and this is really ambitious. It's an incredible mission that you have. So could you walk us through a time you've doubted the path? Maybe it's because of setbacks, maybe funding related things, or simply because you feel like you weren't doing enough, and how you were able to pull through that doubt.
As an entrepreneur, I think I have doubts every day. This is not to be confused with a lack of motivation or a lack of self-assurance. I think sometimes you doubt, is this going to work? In my case, do I know enough about emerging technologies to pass that information on? Am I doing the right thing? Is this the right strategy? Things like that. But again, that's not to be confused with having faith in your mission and faith in your goal and faith in what you're executing. I think Web3sy and everything that we stand for has a lot of promise, has a lot of potential, and will push Web3sy as far as I can, absolutely as far as I can. There have definitely been days, moments, weeks, months of like, I don't know if I can do this, I'm burnt out, this is requesting a lot of me in a time where I can't provide that. And I think doubts are human. You don't have to be an entrepreneur to have doubts or to question things. But it's really about how you deal with those and how you circumvent those, how you put in blockers for that. And what I mean by that is if I have a doubt, then I should build something that will not give me that doubt again. If I'm like, okay, is this the right strategy? Talk to people, find out if it's the right strategy. Correspond with others and identify how did they do it. And that will in turn nullify or decrease your doubt. So I think every day you will have some kind of thing that will attempt to set you back, but it's about how you overcome that, in my opinion.
That's really cool. And I think, as you mentioned, it's a common practice it's a daily struggle with entrepreneurs. But I think, like you mentioned, it's something that's true, it's something every entrepreneur will face. I won't lie, I've definitely felt I would pick up the mic in a heartbeat. And I think similar to what you're saying, that I don't remember if it was someone on the podcast or a podcast I watched or someone, but basically they said kind of like essentially being an entrepreneur is a wild experience, because one, you're trying to bring to life something that either doesn't exist in your market or there's nothing like what you want to bring. So essentially it's almost like bringing something from nothing. But then also, you as the individual can see where you want to go, but sometimes others don't. So also trying to get past that stage. And I know I've dealt with that. I know other people who've been on this podcast have dealt with that. I'm sure you've dealt with this as well, where you're trying to people may not get with what you're trying to do. Or they might be like, this is cool, but like,
Definitely.
why, like, I don't really see why you need to do it type of thing. And I think, like you said there, it's really important about remembering why you do what you do, the importance of like, you know, that's why I always say like peer learning and like working with others is super key and necessary. So yeah, I would definitely say like, just think about, if you are an entrepreneur, or if you're thinking about getting into entrepreneurship, think about those around you, who you surround yourself with, and how you can work together and grow. But yeah, we're going to go on to the next question, which is all about curriculum innovation. So how do you decide what to teach in the fields like Web3, AI, quantum computing for the ages 18 to 15? That's the first part. I will ask that first part because the second part is actually quite long. So I'll go ahead with that first part.
Okay, cool. So firstly, the ages are 8 to 15. And secondly, how do I decide what? So with those first three, those are actually our first 3 tracks other than quantum computing. So one important bit of context is Web3sy didn't start out being aimed at kids. It was actually initially aimed at adults, which was back maybe at the very beginning when we incorporated, and maybe for about 8 to 12 months after that. And then we pivoted because we realized a few things at one point, that adults are looking for certification. Their goals are a bit different. And for us to be certified, that was a massive undertaking. Not that we weren't willing to do that, but I think we were aimed more at the recreationalist rather than at the person who is attempting to fully upskill for maybe a career transition or something. And in this economy, who has the time or disposable income for passion? I don't know anymore. But what parents always do have disposable income for is their kids. And it's not, again, about like the money, about what you spend on, but it is about learning. And I think that learning is one of the most important things that you could do. I don't think anyone should ever stop learning, even if you're maybe opening up the news once a day, even if you think you're too old or too stable, too stuck to learn, just consuming different media can still be a way of learning. Anyway, so we pivoted to offer these services to kids and their parents, and maybe even schools. We did take out quantum computing from the curriculum as a track, and we introduced it as a one-off workshop, only because it is quite a huge learning curve. It really changes your way of thinking for kids. And at the current moment in time, we don't have the resources to create as engaging a course as we want. We want it to be a bit more interactive, have a few more bespoke things in order to facilitate that specific track. However, when it came to AI and Web3, these two things are things that everyone kind of knows of in some capacity, especially AI. I think when we had come out with our AI track, maybe ChatGPT was starting to come off the ground. So people were, if you mention AI to someone, they would just think ChatGPT. But there's so much more to it than that. And so the goal with the AI track was to show parents and their kids that you can use AI in many different ways. You can use it for music, art, creation. You can use it for your homework if you so wish, just to kind of explore the possibilities of that and give a baseline level of what is AI, how was it even thought of. So we introduce kids to concepts of generative AI, machine learning, what kind of goes on in the background with like the layers and stuff. So actually teaching them what AI is comprised of as well, because we are also targeting future STEM enthusiasts, kids who will want to get into the STEM industry and make a difference and make a change. I think the biggest thing that Web3sy does is we give kids access to these emerging tech concepts significantly earlier than, university level or even like A levels. I think that when I was in school, if I wanted to get involved in an emerging tech, I would have to, yes, go out of my way, but maybe I'd have to find like this really exclusive course or summer camp or something, or these things would be super expensive to find these resources, and even then they wouldn't be aimed at me. So at a 15-year-old or 14-year-old. So that's that. With Web3, a lot of people have heard of crypto, and they've been like, I should stay clear of that. Yeah. I completely understand why one would steer clear of crypto. And there are many things that I could say to kind of negate that line of thinking, but I'm just going to leave it there for now, because Web3 as a concept also has so much to it. It's the backbone of other things like blockchain technology, as well as crypto. And these things can be used in so many different ways as well. So the Web3 track is also about introducing people to the idea that Crypto is not a scam. No, we don't even talk about crypto because I know it can be quite techy with parents. We do touch upon the whole idea of decentralized finance, but mostly we're talking about Web3 and blockchain, things like the metaverse, how Web3 allows for things like digital contracts and what that stands for in the real world versus the digital world, things like that. So again, just explaining these concepts. So to answer your question really briefly, we identified the two or three things that are quite prevalent in today's industries, but not yet commercialized enough that people know what is going on underneath the hood. People are maybe using them as tools on really surface level, like application level, but not really understanding what's happening underneath. So that's what Web3sy aims to clarify.
Okay. I do have a second part to this question, but I have a follow-up question based on what you just said.
Sure.
How do you find, I guess, parents who, like the parents that work with Web3sy, how do you find like working with them on these like topics? Because obviously, like you said, like parents will have their own conceptions of like what AI is. Maybe they have concerns because it's going to affect the industry of work that they're in. So I guess while you're also educating these like kids that take part in the program, how do you find also like I guess navigating the parents and like what their perceived perceptions on these topics are?
So we currently work mainly with charities to put across these cohorts and these workshops. But when I have spoken to parents about Web3sy and what we do, they are very open-minded. And I think it takes an open-minded person to acknowledge there is a state of the world that I am not prepared for, but my kids will have to enter. And you don't even have to think in such a meta way like that for you to enroll your kids in anything. But I think that is, I think that successful people do understand that they need to gear themselves for the future. That's what anyone is doing. When you upskill, when you learn something new, you're investing in yourself for the future, even if it's not put in that way. And I think that a lot of parents, even if they're not technically inclined, understand, they've heard the buzzwords. They know that this is coming. They don't understand it themselves, but they're like, okay, maybe my child will understand it. Maybe my child can benefit from the things that these future technologies will bring. Because we also have to remember that they're not so future anymore. They're literally right here. We just don't know about them, especially AI. It's right here. Everyone's kind of using it at this point. You kind of can't run from it anymore. But Web3 and quantum computing are very similar. They're not too far off. You know, Web3 is making a comeback with things, with the gaming industry, with smart contracts. They're just not as highly visible as crypto is, but they've always been there. They've been there for a very long time. Quantum computing is still kind of yet to be commercialized. If you're in the tech space, you might be using that resource for compute power, but the average person is not touching quantum computing right now. But in the next 10, 15 years, it might have made, you know, strides, significant strides. Quantum computing is being used in the industries that make the tools and things that we use. Like, so for example, today I saw these new meta glasses that were released like very recently, and I have no doubt that quantum computing must have been used even in a compute sense to come up with that level of technology. But yeah, I also wanted to add, we do have another track called Curious Creators, which touches upon other things. So the same way I said that we changed our quantum computing track into a quantum computing one-off workshop, Curious Creators is comprised of many workshops. Sorry. And examples of these are like biotechnology, Internet of Things, AR and VR, just one-off workshops on each of these things. So another way that we kind of say, okay, how do we decide what we want to be a one-off workshop? It's just by thinking, what's interesting? So if we had to come across some kind of new technology, what would we want to know about that? Like, how could we wrap up this technology in 90 minutes? And a really cool example of that was when Neuralink came out. And so that kind of told us, okay, we want to learn about biotech, we want to learn about robotics, and we want to know about the in-between. We want to learn about nanotechnology, all of these things. And that's what kind of creates a workshop and or a track.
That's really cool. And I think even like you mentioned there, like, I know I didn't end up, as you can see, studying biotech, but I got really into it, as you mentioned, like at a young age, because I was reading a book and it was talking about like cloning and stuff like that, and I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. And then like, I recommend the book. It's called Time Riders. The book series, I think, has ended. I don't know if the author went back to write it, but essentially it was really cool. And like you said, like, concepts like that are quite interesting in how they tell us I think that's why I watch a lot of content, so I couldn't tell you who, but someone was saying that's why they love like sci-fi and mainly sci-fi, than fantasy, is because you see these concepts and stuff, and you can then sort of like link it to like real life examples. So when I used to work in we used to do STEM workshops at my university, and I used to work in the team that delivered them. And like the main thing that I saw from that was like, you know, you could tell people, I don't know, I'm trying to think of an example of a workshop we did. There was a workshop that was done on like space travel. So the person who would lead it would start by just talking about like, you know, like, oh, is anyone interested in space? And a few people might put their hands up, and you might be like, oh, cool. Like, have any of you like watched Star Wars? You've seen the ships and all of this stuff. And then you talk about like space travel, going into space, all of this stuff, and then would show like videos on the International Space Station. We had a 360 dome that had an interactive video about what the space station looked like. So it was kind of cool. But yeah, I think it's interesting because it's like, like you even said, nanotechnology, like we hear about it, people have their perceptions, they're thinking it's like Iron Man suits. I'm not gonna lie, there also was a part of me that I'm a nerd at heart, so I was also going down the potentially looking for my own Iron Man suit, but we'll get there at some point.
People have made them. They made very good, you know, replicas, you know, that basically work. It's kind of cool. Yeah,
and it's like you said, like it's so cool to see that like link, and I think like you said, like stuff like AI, quantum computing, like these terms, especially for some parents when they were growing up, these were things that like, you know, people joke that like for some parents like AI was like the Terminator and all of that. Some people, or the Matrix. And now we're seeing, like you said, like we're seeing AI used on a more common basis, and it's used for all kinds of things. And I think it's really interesting because, you know, like you said, like we'll see other stuff like quantum computing being used more, Web3. And I think what's great is like we literally, the line you said there, like you're equipping the next generation to be aware, not only just to be aware of these things, but also to learn how they can like get a foot in the door and like get early access to this stuff. Because yeah, it's the same reason why like my mum, let me not single out my mum, my dad sometimes does as well, but why my parents also ask me tech stuff, because they might not necessarily know it themselves, but they know that me and my siblings know about it as well. The second part of this question is, what kinds of paradigmological or content adaptations have surprised you, basically positively or negatively, when working with essentially kids 8 to 15?
What was the first part of the question?
So it was how did you decide what to teach in those fields to that age group, and then what kinds of it's been a long day, people.
Pedagogical?
Yes, that's it. Thank you. Or content adaptations have surprised you positively or negatively when working with that age group?
Okay. Okay. Now I need to conjugate this word appropriately. Pedagogically? I know what it means, but the conjugation. Pedagogically. No, that sounds wrong. But anyway, in terms of teaching, that's what it means. It's like it's talking about how can you profess this information to someone, to tell them about it, or to teach them about it. So in terms of teaching this age group about these high-level concepts, it definitely can be hard to like keep them engaged, to keep them interested. Ironically, we find that within the 8 to 15 range, a lot of the younger half of them are more enthused about this. And I'm not sure maybe if it's like the teenage angst of the older half that like makes them maybe not feel so inclined to like ask questions. But what's quite funny is, the younger half will definitely ask a lot of questions. The older half won't, and you'll think, oh my gosh, are they bored and they're not feeling it? And then you'll go up to them and you'll ask them a question, and they have absorbed the information. They can recount it back to you. They just don't do that publicly. I remember we delivered a workshop in person to an age group a bit older than that, so maybe 15 to 20. And the room was really quiet. And we were like, what's happening? So we gave everyone an interactive exercise as part of it, and left them to their devices for about 20 minutes. And as we were going around the room, everyone was so engaged. Everyone knew exactly what they were doing. We were able to talk to them, because maybe it's like them speaking in front of their class, speaking in front of all their peers. But when we're talking to them one-on-one, they were really enthused about it. So sometimes, like you asked me, do I ever have doubts? Sometimes when I'm reviewing the content that we've created, it's like, okay, are they going to be engaged about this? This worked for this age group, is it going to work for this one? But then when we go out and test it, you know, it does work. They just react to it differently. So anything that surprised me, I guess that did surprise me. Another thing that surprised me was I went to a school and was delivering a workshop on Web3, and I asked, has anyone heard of Web3? No one put their hands up. I was like, has anyone heard of blockchain? Maybe 2 people put their hands up. And then I asked, has anyone heard of crypto? And everyone put their hand up. And I was like, what? Like, those last 2 things are the children of Web3, and no one knows the difference. And that's how I knew, I mean, I knew before, but that's how I knew that there's like such a big misconception of these things, these tools. And that definitely needs to be corrected. It was really a wake-up moment, because it made me think, if no one knows what Web3 is, who is going to sign up for a track or a class on Web3? But they know what blockchain is, they know what crypto is. So how do I bridge that gap? Something that I'm still working on. So if anyone has any ideas, let me know. But no, definitely interesting to know what this generation has been exposed to and hasn't, and their level of understanding.
And I think one thing to also emphasize on what you just said there is kids are ruthless. That age group are ruthless. So if they don't like something, not only will you know about it, they'll be vocal about it too. But I think it's really key, like you said there, like it's clear that there's, like you said, there's understanding, and as you mentioned, like there's a difference between, I guess, like older generations know about these topics than like younger generations, and whether that's through like social media, whether it's through influencers, so to speak, and like seeing certain people that like big YouTubers or whatever, people big on social media, like going into like blockchain, crypto. I think it's interesting, like you said, like there's like bits of knowledge, or there's people that gain like pockets of knowledge but don't necessarily know the full story. And I guess from these tracks that you're doing, as well as the one-off workshops, they are now finding out the, like, I guess if we're the creative in me, the whole tapestry rather than just like one small piece, which is really cool. We're going to go on to scaling impact in diverse contexts. So you've partnered with organizations, you've partnered with many, just to name one of them is the Queen Elizabeth Olympic Park. As you look to scale, as every entrepreneur does, how do you adapt Web3sy's model to different local contexts? So whether this is cultural, whether this is economics, whether this is infrastructural, what's a non-negotiable, and then what do you tend to flex depending on those like contexts?
This is a really interesting question, because it's not something that Web3sy has yet asked ourselves. This is something that we might be in the middle of. I think when I was starting with Web3sy, I was really ambitious with what I wanted to do and how soon I wanted to do it. It's not a problem to be ambitious. It is good to be realistic. And when managing some of the other projects that I've got, I realized, okay, Nkeiru, you can only do so much. Like, I really wanted to start reaching out to schools and to businesses and to parents to have it be a bit more B2C. And then I realized I have a full-time job. I cannot be going cross-country to different schools and doing these classes on a weekly basis. And then you might think, okay, what about hiring? How about you get some people in order to kind of hire first, so that I have people to do the things, I need to kind of have something solid kind of coming in. So I'm asking myself all these questions currently. And as I mentioned a tiny bit earlier, we currently work with charities. So we do our online after-school clubs with charities, and they kind of provide us with a cohort of like-minded kids, and we teach them, we go through our tracks and our content, our one-off workshops, if it be that way. And yeah, so that's how that goes. When it comes to scaling, First of all, we're probably going to try and reach out to more charities. But for me to really sit down and do some actual scaling, I have to restructure my entire life, which I'm not opposed to doing. I am definitely going through a process of, okay, Nkeiru, what stays and what goes, to kind of help validate that and set that up. I think hiring is something I have to strongly consider as well. There is an art to hiring, which I didn't know. I learned the hard way. So there's that to consider. There's definitely doing more promotion for businesses themselves. It's something that I've heard a lot of people do and have success with. But in order for you to work and partner with businesses, you have to have a really good understanding of your impact as a organization, and not just, okay, this is what we do, but like metrics for your impact. And we haven't started measuring. We have a few, but no, we need to really start measuring. And I think it's really interesting to see that this has gone from a project to a business. And I know it's been a business since 2023, but to tell yourself, Nkeiru, you have a business and you to manage it like a business, it's kind of crazy. Because in order to unlock the next part, you do need to place yourself appropriately and have all the things that you need at your disposal. But yeah, something that I'm still figuring out. I'm really excited to kind of enter that, sort of segue into that era of Web3sy.
Okay, that's really cool. And I think, like you said, like two things to touch on. Impact is also something we now have to capture. Stats will always take you so far, and will definitely a good measure of your impact of the work that you're doing. But I think also, as you mentioned, there is an art to scaling. I guess linking to your earlier point about learning, it links to also that as well. Always being open to learn about whether it's changes in the market, changes in your business model, changes in potentially funding. That's really good. But I think the most important thing from what you said, I think, at least I'm taking home with me today, is I think your openness to adapt, your adaptability, that's what I was going to say. And your openness to just be like, actually, I'm getting into a stage where some things may need to be dropped and some things might need to stay. And I think that that's a really key thing to have as an entrepreneur, like regardless of whether you're, like whatever stage you're at, I think whether you're looking for funding, whether you're looking to develop and grow into new areas, whether you're looking to build your business and whatever, even on a personal level. So I guess literally the same as you, with Pick Up the Mic, I'm super ambitious. I literally have to have I don't have to, but my family are more than vocal enough to slap my wrist from time to time. Because as you said, like I think as an entrepreneur, you have a lot of dreams, you have a lot of passion, you have to do loads of stuff. That's even to some context why now I work part-time. Because when I was doing Pick Up the Mic before, like every entrepreneur, I was pushing myself so far. I would work a 9 to 5, and then because I like in-person recordings, I would do in-person recordings. I would then record like at my university. So I'd work, do my 9 to 5 at my university, and then literally go from there, do recordings, because I was like, I don't know when I'm going to next record. I would sometimes bank 2 recordings back to back. So I would do an hour and maybe 15 minutes, do another hour and 15 minutes. Then it would take me an hour and a half to get home. So I'd leave the house at like 8, come back at like 10, which was not good. The lesson learned is burnout is real, and it came for me. But that's what I like now, that I work part-time, I can focus time to work on my business. And that was one of the things that, well, besides from also wanting a different, like this job interesting me, I was like, it is part-time. I can learn about stuff for my business while I'm actually working, but also on a personal level, I just feel like having part-time work and experiencing that to develop Pick Up Mic would be good. And over 2 years later, it's been great. Pick Up Mic has definitely grown from where it was 2 years ago. We held our first in-person event at my workplace. We've hosted collaborations. We now do podcast recordings at my workplace. They thankfully let me do this. But yeah, I think like you said, like it was knowing that like I couldn't sustain that lifestyle. It wouldn't have worked. So, yeah, definitely know when to drop stuff is the advice for you. Last question, and then feel free to ask me any question on entrepreneurship that you would like to, or about my own experience with some of these points, is the vision beyond education. So, Web3sy is all about education, but we know through sometimes working with universities and people who work in the education sector that it can also be a springboard into new areas, maybe new bits of research. So, I would like you to cast your mind into 5 to 10 years' time, what kind of broader ecosystem do you hope Web3sy helps bring? There is a two-parter. So what do you hope it will bring? And it can be to specific groups, so whether it's young founders, startups led by alumni of, all the different tracks that you do, and maybe all people who've attended your one-off workshops, community networks, influencing policy. And then the second part is, how are you then building towards that?
Every time I get this question, I don't really know how to answer it because I feel like, I don't know if this will be cheesy, but I feel like if I answer this question, that has to be it. Like I have to get it. It makes me feel like that is the next goal, where if I keep the answer open, the goal could be farther. But I think what I will say is the same way you may have heard of education franchises or chains like Kumon or Explore Learning, I really would want Web3sy to get to that level, where it's facilitating higher education for kids in a physical level. So having these outlets, these places where kids could come and go to learn more, to engage in workshops, kind of like a nationwide after-school club. So I definitely would like to incorporate in schools, maybe have an interactive platform as well. I would like to be the place that, I would like to be the norm. The norm for parents who want to get their kids into STEM. Wow. Kind of like when you were younger, a lot of people would have gone on like bbc.com to play games, mini clip, that kind of thing. I want it to be that normal. Like both kids know and parents know. Like kids would want to go onto web3sy.com and play games or get certificates in new things or learn about new things. So yeah, just a place for younger people to talk, yes, have community, but also for them to put their own content out there. What Web3sy also does is we host interns. So we host interns from abroad every summer with our partners such as CIEE and Anglo Education. Thanks. And that gives young people, and these are young people around 18 to 19, that gives young people a way to get work experience and things like that. I would love, and when they come on board, they usually put out a lot of content. They run their own workshops, things like that. It'd be great for people to get experience in that way. Because it's hard to get into tech now, much harder. I had done 4 internships before I got my first role, and I don't know. I think I did deserve my first role, but I do know that not everyone has opportunities, and I think if Web3sy can provide opportunities to people either by upskilling them, giving them a platform, or just telling them about these opportunities that are out there and that exist, then that's a job well done. Like we've done what we came to do. So yeah, a name is like common as Kumon. Yeah, that's what I kind of see.
That's really cool. Thank you. This is your opportunity. If you have any questions about entrepreneurship or either link to the stuff we discussed today or anything else, we pick up the mic. This is your opportunity to ask any questions. Yeah,
so the question that you asked that really made me think was the scalability one. And it made me also think, what does scaling look like for you? Because when I've come on the podcast before and we've discussed how Pick Up the Mic came to be, it seems very passive. You seem to like get to know really cool people, like you used your network. And I think some people don't have a network. So I guess there's 2 questions. Number one is, if you don't have a network, what does scaling look like? And number 2 is, it seems that a lot of your growth has been very passive, like working with your network. What does active scaling look like for Pick Up the Mic?
Ooh, good questions. If you don't have a network, let's start with the first one. Don't have a network, how would you grow? I mean, it sounds... Actually, wait, sorry. Before I go into that, one thing I did like with your scalability answer. I'm not going to steal that. I will come up with mine. But I did like that you said you didn't want to commit to one thing. Because also, I would say from the last basically over 4.5 years to Pick Up the Mic, like when I started, I never would have expected us to have more than one podcast. I never would have expected us to, maybe we would have done workshops, but that wasn't the plan. Now potentially, we're going into the stage of launching our own program, all of this stuff I never would have imagined. So I think, like you said, I've never, even though I've probably come up with multiple answers, and I'm pretty sure if I go back to the first season of any of our podcasts, I've probably said something that is completely different to what Pick Up the Mic is now. To anyone who doesn't have a network, sounds super obvious, but I would say just like, start with the people that you know. So, like, I didn't know about navigating YouTube. My brother has been uploading stuff on YouTube. So when it came to using YouTube, I asked him for advice. I didn't know about, so I think it's actually, two things. One is learning, like you said. I think there's free tools. There's like, if you wanted to learn about, let's say, like coding, for example, like there are, I think Google sometimes do like free courses on like how to code, for example, or like other places do. So I'd say always keep an eye out for that stuff. Reach out to people. So a lot of the people on LinkedIn, for example, I always say, funnily enough, in the episode we did this morning, mentioned LinkedIn. It's mentioned most episodes, to be fair, but LinkedIn is a really good tool. I tell people, like, again, technically we didn't meet through LinkedIn, but we met through a networking event. But essentially, I would say like networking events and LinkedIn are great because people are open for that collaboration. One thing that the episode is out, called Sharon, we were discussing was this whole idea of like networking laterally, not always like vertically. So not always feeling like, because I think as an entrepreneur, or even as someone who doesn't like have a big network people will argue that. Anyways, what I'm trying to say with that is sometimes people will be like, oh, like you need to like connect with loads of CEOs or directors or, you know, like all of these people. And like through networking laterally, I've learned a lot about stuff that I wouldn't necessarily have learned, or I would have, but then I would have had to necessarily, like basically there's no difference between networking within people in my community and then some laterally. Like, yes, they've got more experience. Yes, they can potentially connect me with people. But it's the same thing with, like, if you get a mentor. Like, I'm currently on a program, a business program, by an organization called 2020 Levels. This isn't a plug. It's, like, I've just started. It might be useful for you. If it's not, I'll tell you guys at the end. But I imagine it will be useful for me. But that program, like, they were just like, yeah, we're going to have mentors. Some of them are, like, big in their industry. They're CEOs and all of this stuff. Or, like, they're high up in companies. And they said, look, like, they're not going to necessarily have... They've agreed to a certain amount of mentoring. They were just like, they might not be able to keep you on as a mentee post, like, the time they've committed. But the reason why I mention that is because there's a lot that you can learn from people around you. So, community partner, shout them out most of the time, System. One of the founders of System, Donna, she's amazing at like designing stuff. So whenever I collaborate with them, they design the posters. And I think there was one event when I was just like, look, like you create amazing stuff on Canva. Like, tell me how, because like I'll just typically use a template I found on Canva, maybe customize it a bit in here and there, but like I was just like, I just want you to walk through with me, like if you're free, like, and then after like an afternoon or morning, let's just do an online call break down how to do this. And she did, and I was like, this is really cool. Like, it's simple stuff that you're doing, but I didn't know that. Now I couldn't necessarily pay someone to teach me that. There's online platforms like, I'm not saying I don't even know if Masterclass talks about Canva, but there's probably an online platform that I could pay, or YouTube channels that could do loads of information. But I just reached out to Donna and said, I love the post, like your posters are amazing that you make. How do you do this? Because it's visually engaging, and like, every time I see it, even people that I share it with, they're like, it's unique. They see it, they're just like, oh, I know this is for System. So that was my first thing, is keep learning and just network both laterally, but then also feel free to reach out to people above your level, also maybe potentially who are earlier in their career than you. The second thing about, like, if you want to be more active, even like you, so I think it's great that you mentioned that. I know personally, for Pick Up the Mic, I take it on a passive level. Like, if I was more on top of things, I say was the best way to describe it. I would contact, like, for example, like more organizations, or like I'd be like going really heavy on our like spotlight service to get like paid clients, all of this stuff. But I know I do it more like on a passive thing, both for like my well-being, but also so I don't like overwhelm the people that most of the time volunteer to support the work that we do. But yeah, if anyone wants to go active, my biggest advice would just be So it would be commit to doing stuff, but then I would say the biggest way to track that is actually one, I haven't tried it myself, but I'm looking to do it, is one that, I think I mentioned it in the other podcast episode we did, but Atomic Habits by James Clear. He's also, I would recommend, I don't know if you've read the book.
Not yet. I've been meaning to buy it.
No, honestly, it's amazing. Changed, well, it gave me a lot to think about, which I've really enjoyed. But one of the things he mentions is like the whole idea of like habit tracking. So the whole book, in essence, is basically about how doing a small thing every day can help you to achieve bigger goals. So in the sense of, if I commit 5 minutes to reading a book every day, I will finish the book before the end of the year, rather than if I said I'm going to spend like, I don't know, an afternoon, my commitment is just to finish this book. Because I might do it, 10 minutes today and then not read it for 2 weeks because life gets hectic. But he said, if you just say, hey, 5 minutes, I can afford 5 minutes to read a book, it's fine. Maybe that will go longer because I'm really enjoying the book. But he said, just give yourself like a small bit of time every day to do it. One of the things he talks about in that book is the idea of habit tracking. And he was saying one thing that he does is he basically, when he was doing cold calls to businesses and like reaching out to them when he started out, a bit of context is he's not a writer by trade. I forgot what he studied actually, but he wanted to go down more the sports route. He got into it. He got a like serious injury that put his put his health at risk. He wasn't able to go down the sports route, but then like learned a lot through that, which led to his book, which has now led to him doing talks for businesses. And he said what he does is he basically has like 2 jars. So he's got one on the left hand side of his desk, one on the right side, and one's full of like pens. And he basically says what he does is every time he sends an email, it's literally just moving one pen from one pot to another. And he said the aim at the end of the day is to have the left jar empty and the right jar full. And he said that can just simply be like, I need to send, I need to do 10 emails to businesses that I could collaborate with. And just literally it's just moving the pen from one side to another. It could be, he was writing this book. He was just like, sometimes it was just like, oh, I'm going to write a chapter, or like, I'm going to write and send over to someone to review my first chapter of the book, or run through an idea with them, or book in a call with them. And he said it can be anything, but having that visual thing is nice because it's like you're seeing the progression of your goal that you've set for the day. So I would say make it, so he talks about like the 4 things about building good habits, and one of them is about making it attractive. So it's like, if you want to keep a good habit, it's about making it easy, attractive, and I've forgotten the other 2. And then the opposite of that is if you want to get rid of a bad habit, it's the opposite. So you want to make it hard to do, you want to make it unattractive. And he's basically just talks about, I don't know what the other 2 are, but he's also has like resources on his website. If you type in Atomic Habits, James Clear website, it'll appear. But it specifically talks about like, from a business aspect. And that would be my biggest thing, is if you want to be active about stuff, commit to goals. I know some people use Notion, some people use Asana, some people prefer to-do lists, but I would say track it, make it attractive. So whether that's like, hey, like, I don't know, I'm going to send 3 cold call emails, and if I do that by the end of the day, I don't know, I'm going to get myself a nice iced latte, or I'm going to go to Watch House and buy something nice. It could be, I don't know, I'm going to go go on a nice walk. If I can do, maybe, no, you don't have to, I'll go somewhere nice for a nice little treat, for doing like 3 calls about like my business and doing like business sales with 3 different businesses. And yeah, I think like that, like and the final thing I'll say with it is he said like with goals, it shouldn't necessarily be like, so like I said, it shouldn't be about, I need to finish this book before the end of the year. It should be, I just need to do this small action to do it. So with the calls, it could be, so rather than me being, so like if it was, let's say, pick up the mic, I was just like, I'm locking in, this is between now and the end of the year, which essentially is kind of where I'm getting at, because I have a few things to do before the end of the year, but it would be, okay, rather than me saying, by end of 2025, I need to have, let's say, 3 corporate sponsors who could be involved in our Fund and Flourish Lab that we're launching in January. It could be, okay, by the end of each day, I need to contact or have discussions about the Fund and Flourish Lab with 3 different individuals or organizations, reaching out to them about collaborating. And that whatever happens from it happens, but at least I know I've been working at it every day, and I can then see the eventual growth of that. So that would be my long-winded answer, but I hope that answered the question.
No, that's really cool. There's a lot to unpack there. I've been meaning to get my hands on Atomic Habits. I feel like I do. I feel like I've got the book somewhere at home, but maybe I'll just get it again because like I want to get one where I can like write in it and highlight things that are really important. So thank you for the synopsis of the book. And then the things that you mentioned at the end, it made me think of how I could change my strategy when I think a really important thing about, and we've both said this a few times in the course of the podcast, a really important thing about being an entrepreneur or being someone who just wants to achieve their goals is learning. And, you know, you can learn from static and dynamic media, like books versus things like podcasts and stuff. But yeah, I feel like conversations like this are really helpful in kind of shifting your mind. And a really difficult thing that I'm starting to understand as a entrepreneur is when you're starting, you have to be willing to experiment and you have to be willing to have things fail. And I hate failing. I hate failing. It feels like such a waste of time. It feels like a waste of resources. But unless I do that, I'm not going to learn what works and what doesn't work.
100%.
So, you know, I've got a long way to go, and I think I will always have a long way to go. I will never know all the answers. I will never be the best business person because who is? And what's also important is that every successful person has a network, has a community, has a village. And I think developing that is something I would like to work on as well, another goal of mine.
That's really cool. And I think two things to touch on what you said. One is on the learning thing. So it was actually, I haven't told you this, so you can find out on camera. But actually, it was, so I've actually learned a lot from you, even though we've only interacted, like, apart from one anime boat party, 4 times. But I think even like the way that I've said, one thing that you do well, one of the many things you do amazing, is the way you can describe Web3sy. I think the way you describe Web3sy is so succinct and so perfect that it makes it, not like even just like the way you describe it, just the way I don't even know the words I'm trying to say, but essentially it's like really, like you just do it in an amazing way. And to me, that really shows like that's the biggest struggle as an entrepreneur is how do you bring idea, like especially if you've got an idea, it doesn't exist yet, how do you go from concept to talking about it? And even if you do, like, you have to know, like, I did a pitching workshop with the program that I was on, and literally that was one of the things we were discussing. It's like, okay, cool, sometimes you'll pitch to people that don't know about your product, they don't understand it, they've got their own perceptions about it. How do you pitch that business to them? And I remember I didn't even know it was you who was saying it, because I was all the way at the back, so I couldn't see. But I remember it was a Black Tech Achievement alumni event, and I remember all I just heard was, I'm Nkeiru, I'm the founder of Web3sy, we make Web3 easy, and this is my question. And I was like, wow. Like, that's a really cool answer. And I was just like, so to me personally, I've learned a lot from just like, even the way you describe it, like you do it in an amazing way, you make it simple and clear. You. So yeah, so that was my first point. What was the second thing I was going to say? You were talking about learning
and community.
And community, yes. I've mentioned it a few times, and I always keep mentioning it because it's a definite reason one of the many reasons why I continue doing what I do. But my good friend Samuel, we did our full-year event earlier this year, and it was really incredible because it was great to see everyone in the community. Like last year was our first time of doing like a celebration so we didn't do it, like literally it was just me and the team for the first 2 years. And then the third year, when I found an event space that I could use, I was like, cool, let's just do it. And it was nice, like it was great. I saw a lot of, like, it was nice to bring together like a wide variety of people. But then year 4, I was like, okay, year 3 was all about, let me teach people, or not teach, but let me tell people the story, pick up the mic, I've not done it before. And then year 4, I was just like, actually, you know what, we've had a cool community with us, I want to spotlight them. So I don't remember the number, so that's why I can't tell you the number of people that we awarded. But essentially, I was like, we've had a lot of cool people throughout the 4 years of Pick Up the Mic. I want to spotlight these people and their businesses, because they do really cool work. So I didn't tell any of this. I just said, I would love it if you could be here, please, because, it'd be cool to celebrate. Even the people who were coming didn't know. But I was like, look, I'm putting everyone on the spot here, but these people, they've been incredible to our journey. And long story short, they got awarded their stuff. But But the reason why I say that is because my friend Samuel, he was one of the people that he was one of the people that Pick Up the Mic started with. He's the one, if you've listened to the first episode of the student guide, he's the one that came up with the whole idea of how to follow your passion in a difficult world. That was not me. He led that episode. All the things you hear in that is him. But we spoke, and he's no longer like actively involved in Pick Up the Mic, but he gives advice. He probably doesn't see himself as an advisor, but I've said you basically are, because you're still checking in both on my mental health and on Pick Up the Mic. So you might not be actively involved and you might not want your name or stuff shown, but I was just like, there's no Pick Up the Mic without you. So shout out to him. He also doesn't like when I shout him out in person. So you won't, if I don't shout him out at the 5th year event, that's why. But essentially, like, he was just like, how do you feel about the event? And I was like, it's really nice, like, it's incredible to see everyone. And he was like, I know you mentioned, like, we've discussed it a few times, that, you want Pick Up the Mic to get more revenue and, to be more financially stable and, like, a constant stream, you want to move to it full time. And I was like, yeah, I know, it's difficult. And he was like, yeah, I'm like, don't worry about that. He was like, look, just look around, you had a great event. Loads of people came through, and he was just like, the biggest thing I want you to remember is you might not be rich, like, financially, but you're rich in community. So I think, like you said, like, that's another reason why I love doing what I do, is because, I think a lot of people have this conception that, like, everyone that's on the podcast, or everyone that, like, helps out, or everyone that, like, comes to our events or speaks or does our panel events, whatever, are people that I've, like, known for a long time, or, like, we've built, like, I've known them since day one. Now, a lot of these people, like, that come onto the podcast, I've literally only met, like, through LinkedIn. And then we've met in person for the first time and just had a good conversation. But to me, it's that. It's like what you said, like, community is such an important part of the journey. And that's why I'm always happy to support people in my community. And I think I know, like, I've spoken to people about this, and I'll say it here so people will understand why I don't always charge extra for my services, or why I charge for stuff. But for some people, I've had, like, especially our two community partners, so System and then Room to Be, those people have done a lot for me, like, and both of them didn't know me. Like, System, I think, reached out to me. I reached out to them to be on the podcast, and they invited me to their brunch, their first ever brunch. And, like, since then, we've just kept in touch. We've worked together a few times, and it's been incredible. And Room to Be is someone who went to the same uni as me, but we didn't know each other. Her friend was on the podcast. She asked if she could be on. We connected, had an amazing time, great conversation, and been friends ever since. And for both of those groups, like, I'm always happy to support them with budget or no budget, because, like, I've said, there are guests for, development of Pick Up the Mic with the founder of Room to Be, Elise, shout out to Elise, wouldn't, like, Pick Up the Mic, she's helped me a lot with research stuff, she's helping me now with research stuff, and I've said, like, Pick Up the Mic wouldn't be where it is without, like, having her to bounce off of. Even the Fund and Flourish Lab, like, I wouldn't have moved progression with it if it wasn't for her. She loved the idea and was happy to support. With System, I've said, like, they were one of the first people that offered me the chance to capture content at their events. And I was like, I'm just looking to build a portfolio for Pick Up the Mic. Could this work? And they were open to it. They'd only maybe known me for a bit, maybe been on the podcast once. But again, they've been super open to working together. I asked them last year, do you want to partner on an event? They did. Like, working with them has always been easy. So for me, community even goes broader than just, like, having people to just lean on. It's also just, like, I've had people that our knowledge exchange, like, literally even today, like, one of the founders of System was in the space. We literally had a conversation, and we're just talking about, like, funding stuff and, like, navigating that. And I gave my advice. They gave me advice on, because they run a program. So yeah, community is so important. That was a very long-winded answer, but I basically am saying community is definitely needed as an entrepreneur. Do you have any other questions?
I don't think so. I think my other questions I will ask you at the end.
Okay. Wait, so at the end of the podcast?
No, privately.
Okay. But yeah, that's it. Thank you very much, Nkeiru. It's been amazing to learn more about you and Web3sy, and as I mentioned, through an entrepreneurial lens. How can people connect? Anything, again, to keep an, like I said, anything coming up that you want to people to be aware of, this is your opportunity to shout them out. How can people get in touch? If people are interested in maybe joining one of the tracks or potentially coming to a one-off workshop or bring their children, how do they do it?
Okay, if you're interested in learning a bit more about Web3sy, you can head to www.web3sy.com, spelled WEB3SY. Web3SY. Web3? Easy. So you can head over there. We're also on Instagram at the same name, just Web3sy, as well as YouTube, where you can find some of our recorded webinars, and LinkedIn as well, if you'd like to follow what we're doing in a more professional context. Similarly, if you'd like to catch up with me or get in touch, I'm also on LinkedIn at Nkeiru, that's Nkeiruka, Wenu, WHENU. I'm also on Instagram, YouTube, and kind of TikTok. I'm getting in my content creation bag. I talk about all things tech, lifestyle, travel, and food. I am an aspiring gourmand. I love food. So you can find me on any of those platforms at NKXIRU. That's Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube as well.
Thank you. This is super random. Have you ever thought about being a presenter? Because the way you just did that was amazing.
I've been told I should work in media. I wouldn't mind.
I can see it.
I've done like hosting for events and stuff. I like being an MC. Yeah.
I don't mind. I guess anyone watching, future MC over here, if you're looking for events, reach out. But yeah, thank you to you, our wonderful audience, for coming back to another episode. Like, comment, subscribe, always appreciated. We love all your support. As we mentioned, community couldn't do this without you. If you want to make sure you don't, also you can see the YouTube signs behind me as well. So big up YouTube, and we've got the on-air sign over there as well. If you want to not miss any of the other episodes of this podcast or anything on the Pick Up the Mic YouTube channel, click the notification bell at the bottom of the video. If you want to receive some cool merch, you really love the stuff we're doing, you want a cool t-shirt like mine that says, "Trust me, I'm a sensei." Maybe this exact one, maybe the one with our female sensei. No, honestly, I need the hype. I need the hype. Well, yeah, if you want to receive this merch, then please do let us know. But also, you get discount rates if you are either a YouTube channel member, a Patreon member, or if you want to, save up on buying one coffee for this month or for future, in the description below. And then finally, if you want to know about our other YouTube channels, you want to check them out, maybe you're interested in sci-fi, fantasy, gaming, or anime, then please do check out those 3 YouTube channels. They are under the For You section on our YouTube homepage. If you head to the homepage, scroll down a bit, you'll see under For You, the 3 channels linked there. Subscribe to them, hit the notification bell. I will say, I'm going to say this on podcast because now I've just been doing this to give myself more work, but we will be doing more episodes of stuff. The 2 Maesters have been busy, but they will be coming out with more episodes in a few weeks on sci-fi and fantasy things. Sensitive Anime will be releasing some more episodes. We've actually got some events that we've been to that we are yet to release footage from, but we are going to be releasing that shortly. Actually, how could I not say, you might recognize Nkeiru because she was in the anime video. So if you haven't seen it, check it out. And then finally, gaming, we'll be doing more discussions in the world of gaming, so keep an eye out on that soon. It's going to be big with games this year. Also, the game of the year is going to be very tough because we've had some very heavy hitters this year, unexpected ones, as well as some that is always expected. But yeah, check out the Pick Up the Controller channel for that. We're going to wrap up the Hustle Chronicles there. It's been amazing having you with us. Thank you so much. We will see you all in the next episode, where we either bring a new entrepreneur or bring someone else back. So keep an eye out, and we'll see you all soon.
Bye, everyone.